Live from WRUE in Tennessee, it's the Scribbling Woman.
Hi, I'm Nancy Rue. I am a scribbling woman, and so are you, and that's why we're having this conversation. Here on this podcast, we talk about the writerly life as it applies to each one of us uniquely, no matter what our age, our season of life, or where we are in our writing career, even if you don't think you have one yet. You are a scribbly, so let's chat. And we are going to chat today because I have three scribbling women in the studio with me, and you are going to love these women. Jim, who is our first guest?
From San Antonio, Texas, it's Barbara Haley.
Barbie is the author of numerous books for kids and for adults, both fiction and nonfiction, including her series Second Wind, starring Biz. And Barb is known for doing a lot of her writing in a booth at IHOP. Barb, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And who else do we have, Jim?
From the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, it's Christine Virgin.
Hi, Christine. Christine is the author of the early YA novel, The Beautiful List, and she's working on the sequel, The Friend List. And one thing you need to know about Christine is that she owns her own race car, so look out on the highway. Christine, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you. And finally, Jim.
From Colorado Springs, Colorado, it's Kay Day.
And since Kay has a short name, she gets the longest introduction. And I can never say her name without doing the whole thing. Kay Day. Kay, welcome to the podcast. Kay is the author of the YA novel Match, which is both quirky and deeply meaningful, and it stars a male protagonist, which is both unusual and valuable in the literary world. Kay is also an artist, and she is the founder of Kay.
Refuge for Healing.
Refuge.com. So definitely you're going to want to visit that. Well, ladies, we are going to have a conversation today. So raise your hand if you have ever been in a group of writers where the talk turned to whether you're a planner or a pantser. Raise your hand. We have all had that experience. What is it about when writers get together and suddenly everybody's got to weigh in on where they are, what slot they fit into? And as you know, on this podcast, we talk about what's unique to you, what works for you personally. And that's what we're going to explore today with these three amazing scribblies. So let's start with what might sound like an unrelated question. And we are going to start with Barb. So Barb, when you go on a vacation trip, how do you approach that? Do you plan everything or what do you do? How does that work for you?
I basically get my airline tickets if I'm flying, and then just leave the rest of it pretty much up in the air for when I get there and talk with everybody else about what we want to do. And I always hope that there's lots of playing.
I didn't know you were a card player. You learn something new about your friends all the time. Christine, what about you?
Yeah. I like to plan, like, if there's something I really want to see where I'm headed, I like to plan a day or a time to go see that thing or experience that site. But outside of that, I also like to have a day or two that are completely unplanned just to add flexibility into travel and, get off the beaten path and just sort of have the freedom to discover something, right?
Yes, love that. And K-Day, what about you?
I don't know what I want to do till I get there.
But it's so you.
What little plan I have is usually food related. Like in San Francisco, I knew I needed to get some sourdough bread.
Oh, well, yeah.
That kind of thing. But yeah.
Okay. So the reason that this applies to writing will become clear in a minute. So I'm now going to ask each one of you, if you did have to label yourself, would you be a pantser, a planner, or a plantser? We're going to start with you, Barb.
Oh, definitely a plotter. I love doing the plot almost as much as
really.
I love
writing. Woman after my own heart. And are you like that in the rest of your life?
Yeah.
Right. Folders, agendas, schedules, all that.
Yeah, it's a little different when you go on vacation because I'm letting my hair down. I'm out of the norm,
Right.
and I'm going to
We're writing
rest.
a book is serious stuff, right? Christine, what about you? Which one of those would you kind of label yourself?
Yeah, I'm by nature, I am absolutely a planner. I give the example in high school, my calendar was like color coded by type of item. My closet is still color
Serious.
coded, or I'm just super organized
Right.
by nature. However, life doesn't always give you, the ability to do that. I've had to learn to be much more flexible as, COVID did that for one, I think for
Mhm.
everyone at least a little bit. And then also I'm a single mom now, and so uh yeah, I'm definitely somebody who plans to fly by the seat of my pants.
Love it. Love it. And Kay, how about you? When it comes to writing, where do you fall?
Yeah, I'm a pantser, although I prefer the term intuitive because flying by the seat of your pants just feels different to me than being intuitive.
Yeah.
And that's how I live my life. I make my art intuitively, and I live my life pretty much by my intuition. I mean, in life, you have to have some plan sometimes, but um,
So
that's pretty much across the board.
I'm going to use that word from now on instead of pantser. I really remind me, you guys, next time the Scribblies are together. So obviously, all three of you have learned to be flexible, not to put yourself into some kind of cubby hole. However, have you ever been in a situation where somebody was telling you this is how it needed to be done? Christine, how about you?
Well, not really with my writing. I think we've all had that experience in at least something, but especially if we're women. But but I think with writing, I have been mostly encouraged. I have tried to seek out groups that want to encourage the creative process and teach, where we all kind of learn and glean knowledge from each other. And so that's been a very positive experience. I will say the most planning focused advice I ever got that was absolutely helpful for me in writing the beautiful list was to just try to write 500 good words a day. And by the end of 100 days of doing that, you'll have a 50,000 word manuscript.
Right?
And the advice was based on two reasons for that. One is if you sit down and have a super long writing session where you bang out 5,000 words, you might very likely end up erasing a bunch of it and having to do more editing than you would on something that's a little more focused. And then also it gives you you don't have to spend as much time writing, right, on a daily basis.
Mhm,
It gets you into the
mhm.
pattern of thinking creatively. And I found that actually helped my creative juices flow when I
Really?
wasn't writing. So that I think that was the best advice I got. But did anybody tell me there was only one way to do it? Thankfully, no.
No, because they would have done that at their peril. You are a very independent woman. Barb, how about you? Did anybody ever say, "Oh, Barb, this is the way this needs to be done"?
No, I've been to lots. I love to learn and keep improving my craft. So I like to get new ideas. So I've been lots of conferences and read lots of books. And nobody's ever said this is how you have to do it. Um, it's always this is a great way to do it. And a lot of them have the same kind of things in common. And so I've kind of created my own system, which is based on actually it's called
Oh,
the Marshall
yeah.
Plan. Um, that was my very first one, and I got that. And so now over the years I've added other things into that. But that's such a
So the
strong
process is
foundation.
as creative as the actual writing itself, right? Now,
Oh, definitely. And when I plan, when I plot, I have something there, but it might start blossoming in my mind. So then I have another page over here where I go ahead and write
right,
everything that's
right.
coming
But
to
it's
my
not to be
mind.
ignored.
And,
Yeah, that's not to
so
be
I don't
ignored.
lose it.
Now, Kay, how
Mhm.
about you? Have you ever had anybody say, "You're doing it wrong"?
I've never had anybody tell me I was doing it wrong, but I have had people basically, whether directly or indirectly, say their way was right.
Ah,
Uh,
please tell me
and
I wasn't one of those people. Okay, I
well,
was one of those people.
I I have yet to take a workshop on how to write intuitively,
Okay.
but I've had a lot of workshops on how to plot.
So really, that is something we need
That's
to
interesting.
approach in the Scribbling Women.
Yes.
And that sounds like another podcast. Okay. You'll be back. For sure. Okay. So when you are approaching a writing project, doing it the way that works best for you, how does that feel? Can you compare it to anything? Christine, how does that feel to you when you know I'm in the zone?
Invigorating. I would think, yeah, it's hard to put it into words, which is funny. That's what
Yes,
we
a writer should never admit that, right?
that's what we do. But I think there are lots of things in our lives that we have to be creative in order to do, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm,
so writing is one of those things that I have approached not as a career. It is not something that I use to pay my bills, but it is something that is a passion and a calling.
okay.
Right? So I think when you feel called, which is what I felt called, like I felt very called to write the beautiful list. I think anytime I sat down and felt like, oh, I'm actually writing something really great, like this feels good. It it was invigorating, and I guess
It sort of has its own energy, doesn't it?
yes, it's validating. I guess a good word is validating. Because for me, again, and I think writing can be different in all of its various forms, right? But like we all have something to say. And when you feel like you're communicating and putting it onto paper in precisely the way that your brain is noodling through it, it is very validating that you're doing the thing that, in my mind, God created you to do, or in
Absolutely.
your mind,
Yeah,
right? Like that you were created to do, no matter if you believe in a creator or not.
I love that.
And
I love that,
so,
Christine.
yeah, I think just,
Invigorating, energizing, validating. Those are great
yeah.
words. You found the words. Kay, how about you? How does it feel?
When I can actually get into the flow, which is difficult for me because I do have that boho in my head that you're not doing this right, you haven't plotted it out.
Right, right.
Uh, so when I do get into the flow, though, and surrender myself to my process, um, it's like being on a playground.
Mm.
Yes.
I actually can have fun, and
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's not plotted, I never really know what's going to happen. So
I love that. Actually once heard you say, Kay, that it was like you're like a child running through a monastery, right? Love that so
Oh,
much. Love it. And Barbie, what about you? What does it feel like when you're on a roll?
yeah. When I'm in a role, I just get so excited. I
And you
just want to tell
do
everybody.
actually.
And a lot of times I do because I'm up at IHOP and they come and bring me some more hot tea. And they're like, "What's Biz doing today?" And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, you got to hear this." And so yeah, I have lots of friends that are into it. That's fun. I got to say though, I do have that same boho that Kay talks about because I don't write a scene. Every scene is not a story in itself. And I remember having my book edited by Diane Mills, and she said it was real, real strong. And I said, well, I wonder how that can be because I didn't follow all the methods. I don't think I worry about if the middle's in the middle and all of that. So even though I plan it all, um, I
Yes,
just
and you
like to
are a
write the
wonderful
story.
storyteller.
Then I use my plan to sort of cut
Yeah,
back where I need to. But yeah, I kind of have that boho too because I think I've studied
it
too
can
much
happen. Yeah.
where
So let's go back and review what a
where
boho is, and you can also listen to episode number 2.
oh yeah.
Boho is a big old hairy obstacle that gets into your head and hisses at you and says, "You're doing it wrong. This is not right." And of course, the boho knows absolutely nothing. It lies, and it just needs to be told. Why don't you go get us some coffee? And I'll get back to you. So even when we're on a roll, is there any place in your writing process that you typically get stuck? I know for me, it's chapter 7. No matter how well I've planned or anything, I get to chapter 7 and go, this is stupid. This is bogging down. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever written. Any of you, I'll just let you kind of burst in. Do you ever have a place where you get stuck? That's typical. Kay, actually, you tell us.
I don't know that I have a specific spot. I would think I get excited about the idea. I write probably a few pages. Yeah.
And then
And by then, I'm having to actually have something happen.
yeah.
Plot. Like I feel like, okay, now it's time for plot to show up. And so then I get stuck because I'm getting back into that boho that I need to start bringing in plot, and then I freeze.
Yeah,
So
bohos are made of super glue, for real. Anybody else have a place where you typically get stuck?
I don't usually get stuck in the writing. I get stuck more in the
Beforehand.
plotting.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Christine, any thoughts on that one?
I mean, again, I'm only in my second manuscript, so I don't have a pattern, and I've written both manuscripts very differently, but I am stuck right now, and I think having your advice, Nancy, which was I wrote it all down today and it's in the other room. So it's not going to be an exact quote, which I wish I had because you wrote it so much more eloquently, but you essentially said I needed to give myself permission to be stuck right now. Like, of course my creative juices wouldn't be flowing right now at this moment in my life as, smoothly as they would be if I weren't dealing with everything that I'm dealing with. So I think that's one message, especially coming from someone like you who's written so prolifically, that holds so much water, because it is a process, right? And it's a journey, and it's creative. And so if you get stuck, I think the one thing I would say about that is that's normal. And whether it happens on a pattern or not, like getting stuck in writing is, I'm sure, something that every writer experiences. And the only writer you're going to meet who has never gotten stuck is just somebody who's waiting to get stuck.
Right. Or who has never actually written anything. They just like the idea. And you know what, Christine, I'm glad I said that to you. I must have been having a really good day, but it is absolutely the truth that we have to give ourselves permission that this is not a linear process. And just because you're slowing down and feeling a little funky doesn't mean that what you've written isn't amazing. It is just part of the process. So,
Nancy, when I remember one time getting stuck on what would she say, and I just couldn't figure it out how she would say it to her husband. And so then I went on Facebook and said, okay, my character's such and such, and I want her to say something like this, but how would you say it? And man, did I get comments. Everybody got involved. They loved it. And the other thing I do is I always turn to my character and start writing a letter to them. And I say, I'm stuck. You did this, you did
how are you
this.
going to get out of it? What are you going to do?
What are you going to do next?
Yeah, and they will tell
exactly.
you. They will absolutely.
And they answer.
Yep.
It's incredible. It's the first time I ever heard Nancy say that her character's talking to her. I'm like, ooh.
And you were absolutely right. It is a little bit woo-woo, but we're writers. We make stuff up and expect people to believe it.
And the better you get to know them, like the easier it is to hear them.
It is, but it is
really
amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So, ladies, what piece of advice would you give to a scribbly who's struggling to find her process? She's got a great idea. She knows what she wants to write, and it just can't seem to get it to come together. Do you have one piece of advice that we can leave for her? Any thoughts?
I can start. I would say find some other writers to encourage you. I would find a writing group, find your people, and hopefully those people will write with you, like meaning you can gather in person or on a Zoom or a Google Meet and just sit and write together silently. Because sometimes
you call that the silent scribbling, right?
Yes. Yeah. And that has been such a fabulous outlet for me to have that outlet, there is a term, again, like my brain is only halfway working, right? So there is an actual term though for getting energy to work from other people. One of you is going to
Synergy.
know.
It's synergy.
It's not synergy. There's like a phrase. I mean, it is synergy, but there's a phrase for it, like an actual mental scientific phrase for
Wow.
how this helps.
Well, when you find out what that is,
Yeah, I'll look it up and then you can add it to the show notes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Barbie, what advice would you give to a Scribbly?
I think my first advice would be get it on paper, get your story out. And I love the idea of letting your main character say, "Hi, my name's Biz. Let me tell you about the real me." And then this is how I started my whole thing. You talk about her childhood, but then you know what? This happened. And so you get those wounds in there and those lies that she's believing. And then what I like to do is once I get up to the current day, then I let her confidant say, "Okay, I've known this since childhood. Let me tell you, she's missing it in some places. She's got a blind spot." And then she talks about it. And man, that opens up all kinds of conflict. And then you want to take your antagonist and say, "I admire Biz, I respect her, but she's got room to grow." And then start saying that, and then you get all these interrelationships. And I even then have her family, her kids, and her
you know
husband.
what? That shows in your stories. Those characters just absolutely come alive. They really do. And Kay, what about you? Advice for a Scribbly?
Well, I guess since I'm an intuitive person, I'm going to say to go with what feels good to you, what feels right, and what I'm going to be working on for myself, because these questions have helped me kind of
good.
Put some things together in my own writing, and why I get stuck is to not care if there's a right way or a wrong way, because we don't have to explain ourselves to anybody.
Absolutely.
Do it how I do it. And if everybody in the world does it differently, it doesn't matter, as long as I'm getting the story out. And I get stuck when I'm trying to do it the other way, when I'm trying to do it somebody else's way. So figure out what feels good and works, and who cares what you call it.
Exactly. And we don't have to call it anything. And I'm really glad you said that these questions have helped you, because on this next week's blog post, which you can find at www.nancyrue.com/blog, we're going to take you through that process using a lot of these same questions. And of course, if you want more of these kind of podcasts with scribbling women like the fabulous Barbie, the amazing Christine, and the awesome Kay, you can certainly subscribe. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. Any last words anybody wants to say?
Just thank you for having me.
Good. Enjoy it. Good. If it's not fun, why the Sam Hill are we doing it, right? Ladies, thank you so much. And those of you who are listening, until next time, Scribblies, scribble on.